So if you're completely prepared physically and spiritually for Shavuos, this may not resonate with you at all, and my apologies therefore to you. But if you feel somewhat detached from this monumental event that we're about to experience of the day of Kabbalah Satorah, if you feel that perhaps you have not ascended on a daily basis from Pesach until Shavuos to be able to really feel that you are on a momentum, on a continuum of ascent, and that you really feel like you're a different person than you were 6 weeks ago, then maybe this Devar Torah is for you. Okay. In Parshas Bamidbar, we learn about what are called the Digalim. The Digalim are the banners that every tribe was assigned. And these were actually physical flags that had pictures on them. And anyone who thinks that art is of no use for the Jewish people just simply doesn't know the Chumash. Visual aids are absolutely necessary for inspiring and allowing the Jewish people to come to a certain mental, emotional, and spiritual state. And therefore, the Torah says that it was necessary for each Shevet to have a banner. And that banner was in some way representative of the koach, of the ability of that Shevet. And listen to what the Shem Mishmuel says. He first brings us a medrash. This is in source number 2. The medrash quotes from Shir Hashirim, Hevi'ani el Beit Hayayin. My beloved has brought me to the house of wine. Here we go with the wine again. Sorry. Not intentional. So the medrash says, B'shah shenigla HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Har Sinai, when God revealed himself on Mount Sinai, Yardu imo chaf beis revavos shel malachim. 22,000 angels came down with Hashem, or actually 220,000 according to this medrash. V'chulam hayu asuyim digalim digalim. And all of these angels assembled themselves in banner formation. In other words, every angel aligned himself with a particular class. And it's not all the angels are the same. You know that. You have Ophanim and Seraphim and all the different other names of the angels. And the Kruvim. So all of the different angels assembled according to their respective banners. Keven sharu osam Yisrael hisavu ledegalim kemosan. The Jewish people see the angels assembling themselves according to their respective banners, and they said, we want to assemble ourselves that way as well. So Amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu chayechem sha'ani memalei mish'alosechem. God says, granted. And that's why the Jewish people will have banners according to their tribes. So this cryptic medrash needs explanation. So he says, V'nir elef haresh inyan hadigalim. I'd like to explain it as follows, and I'm just giving you an abridged version of the essay. Kemoshe begashmius keshe'echad min hamachane to'eh v'hu mechapes ana v'ana limso derech levo lemachanehu. He says, let's say you have a group. You ever go to Canada's Wonderland or Disneyland, and you're traveling with a group of people. So what does the leader do? He holds up a flag or some kind of identifying sign, so that if anyone gets lost, look for this flag or look for this thing that I'm holding, right? So that you'll be able to reattach yourself to the group if you get lost. He says, he says, so if a straggler gets lost from the camp, he'll have an easy way to find his way back, because he just has to look for that banner, for that identifying sign, and he'll be able to come back to where he needs to go. Kenu Baruchnius. He says the same thing is true in spiritual matters as well. People get lost all the time. People spiritually straggle all the time. Sheksiv ta'isi kiseh. After all, King David about himself said, I am like a lost sheep, lost from the flock. I don't know what happened, but somehow I turned around and I got distracted, and all the other sheep went ahead of me, and they're all now a mile down the road, and I just lifted up my head and said, hey, where did everyone go? Right? That's the way David HaMelech describes himself. And the same thing is true in Divrei Hayomim, that there were periods in Jewish history where the entire Jewish people did not have anyone to guide them. Mikol makom, he says, but nevertheless, yesh b'koach Yisrael b'pam echas ledaleg shur lihimashech el sharsho shu Hashem yisparach. He says, every single Jew has the ability, no matter how far away he or she has gotten from the camp, so to speak, anyone can just skip back immediately back and find themselves reattached to the camp, to the source, to God. The bechinas dilug ukefitza velo darga bars basar darga. And this can happen in a quantum leap, which is called dilug ukefitza, just an instantaneous leap from 0 to 100. And you don't have to go gradually in steps like we are normally used to doing during this period of Sphira, day 1, day 2, day 3, gradual growth. He says, no, it could happen sometimes when a person is at 0. You can sometimes find yourself jumping to the final level. You ever play Chutes and Ladders? This is our Chutes and Ladders game, right? You can either go the normal progression or you go up the ladder. You can also go down the chute, though. That's okay. So he says, "V'zehu inyan hadigalim shenisavu Yisrael." He says, but that's the meaning of digalim, of these banners. Shedegel hu mishulashon dilug. Look at this play on words. He says, degel and dilug is just a transposition of the lamed and the gimel. Yeah. He says a banner also allows for skipping or making quantum leaps. And this is actually mentioned in the Medrash, this play on words. He said that's exactly what the Jewish people were so desirous of when they saw the angels. They said, if the angels can do it, we want to be able to have that ability to immediately jump back to where we belong, even without the necessary steps in between. Even when we're mired in all of the distractions of this world. Do you ever wake up one morning and your head is cloudy because there's so many allergens in the air, like a morning like this, and you don't know whether you're going to be able to make it through the day, even after your first and second cup of coffee? I don't know. I sometimes feel that way, and you're so bogged down. You don't even know how you're going to make it to the next appointment, let alone being able to reattach yourself to something truly meaningful and spiritual and divine. But berege echad yizkor v'yauf al kanfei ahava lihidavek b'shosho. But he says, even in that distant state, you can, in 1 second, be reminded of where you come from, and you can fly. The beautiful, beautiful flowery prose. He says, you can fly on the wings of love to reattach to your source. He says, "V'al derech zeh yesh lefaresh ha'inyan rifidim sherafu yedehem min haTorah." He says that's how we can explain the story that we have in Parshas B'Shalach, that the Jewish people left a place called Rifidim in Parshas Yisro. Vayis'u mi Rifidim vayavo'u midbar Sinai. The Jewish people left a place called Rifidim, where they were weak, and they immediately come to Mount Sinai. So he says, "Umabiatam lamidbar Sinai b'teshuva, af nesiatam b'refidim b'teshuva," which means that what the Torah is describing here is Refidim was where they had that war with Amalek, and that this was a sign that they were spiritually in a weakened state. He says, but they were able to do that through a quantum leap of tshuva. Sheba vadai lo hayazeh b'mikreh. He says the Torah is not relating this episode to us just by coincidence. V'hainu dihinei kvar amaynu daha derafu yudei min haTorah einenu kipshuto, shezeh haya shayachim haya lehem od zman rab v'derech rechoka ad Har Sinai haya makom lomar sherafu yudeihem. He says this episode of the Jewish people being in a weakened state in Rifidim, which comes from the word rafa, which means weak or loose. He says, how can you say that that happened immediately before they received the Torah? I could understand if there were like months or weeks before the time of receiving the Torah, the Jews are weak, and they gradually ascend and move away from Rifidim, and they grow, and they walk, and they continue, and they gradually strengthen themselves. That would have made sense. But he says, you know what actually was happening, the deeper meaning of what was happening at Rifidim? Kolomar kemisya'ashim lahagia lazen. He says, what really the Torah is describing is the Jews said, we've only got days before we receive the Torah, and we're not nearly ready. We're not nearly ready. It's like having to go to a wedding, which the chuppah is at 7, and you haven't even started your makeup, and it's already 10 after 7, and you don't know how in the world am I going to get there in time for the wedding. Right?
Go without makeup.
Never. I would never go to the wedding without my makeup. Absolutely not. But the point is that the Jewish people come to this realization that we're not where we need to be. It's pointless. How are we ever going to? We're never going to be there. We're never going to make it. We're not going to get there in time to feel that sense of preparedness for Kabbalas HaTorah. It's not going to happen. And therefore he says, and we'll skip to the next paragraph, he says, Acha perushu shehim yadu heitev ketzat tzrichim lios lekabalas haTorah shetia mupseke zu hamasa. The Jewish people knew very well that they needed to be at a place where there was no impurity within them whatsoever in order for them to properly receive the Torah. Ki dordei hayu. They knew, they were clear on what was going on. V'cha'asher shi'aru esmahu sam matzu atzmam rachok meza. And when they gauged themselves internally, they saw how distant they were from that necessary state. Utzrichim od hachanos rabos ushihiyas man harbei. And they said, there's so much more for us to do. We need so much more time if we're really going to do this properly. Shelafi hash'arasam bilti efshar lahagia lazeh bimat hazman hazeh. He says, there's no way, based on our understanding of where we have to be, there's no way we're going to do it in time. Al kain hayu ba'atzmam kimisya ashim. And that's why they sort of gave up hope on themselves. Mikol makom haisa avera. But that in itself was what God said is improper to do. Shebahadi kvashi derachman olamalach. Why are you trying to second guess God? If God says that you can make it to Matan Torah, if you can make it to Har Sinai, despite where you find yourselves now, then don't give up hope on yourselves. If God believes you can do it, if God says you can do it, then you can do it. So they should not have thought about these things. Don't worry, don't fret. If Hashem says you're going to make it on Vav Sivan to Kabbalas HaTorah, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. Ach mikol makom atzat Hashem hitakum shene'achar shayidei biat amalek bo'u l'tshuva u'bal tshuva yachol lihitkarev b'riga chada u'b'shaita chada. He says, but that's the tshuva experience after an Amalekite war. You go through an experience with Amalek, a trauma, and you survive the trauma, and you realize that experience can provide you with this quantum leap that we were talking about with the Degalim. That's what the Degel is all about. It provides you with an epiphany. It provides you with an understanding that you never thought you were capable of having before. And that's the reason why, despite the fact that the Jewish people saw how behind schedule they were able to make that quantum jump. Al kain take up bivoam al Har Sinai b'teshuva alu ma'alot rabot b'pisiya achatu paska zuhumatan. He says, and that's why, even though they were very far, but as soon as they came to Har Sinai on that Rosh Chodesh Sivan, which is today, they were able to have this new experience. In one jump, they saw the mountain. They had experienced the trauma of Amalek. And all of a sudden, they come to this newfound strength that they never knew that they were capable of possessing after not having gone through the preparatory stages that they thought that they needed. But then he says, "Ubevadai kein yiyeh le'asid." He says, but you have to take hope that that's what's going to happen in the future of the Jewish people as well. Ab sherachoku mehasharas enosh, eich anashim shvelim kamonu hayom, nizke lihiyos b'dora demalka meshicha. He says, look at us today. He says, Shem Shmuel is writing this in the 1920s. He says, look at us today. He says, how could people like us, we're so distant from Mashiach, we're so distant from a messianic perfection. How in the world are we going to be able to get from here to there? It doesn't seem possible. It doesn't seem like it's even humanly attainable for the Jewish people to attain the necessary level of being able to welcome the Mashiach. He says, Mikol makom, me'achar she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu yamid melech kehaman k'mosh amru zal, im enos in tshuva v'chulei, ve'az kulam yasu tshuva, v'shuv b'riga chada v'shayta chada nizkeh l'chol ha'yudim ha'tovim. He says, but, trauma occurs to the Jewish people in different stages in Jewish history. He's writing this before the Shoah. He almost is prophesying the Shoah in this sentence. He says, things happen in Jewish history. And sometimes they provide these catalysts to the Jewish experience and to the human experience, which completely alter our perception of reality. And so anything can happen that will change the Jewish people and allow us to make these quantum leaps to be able to welcome Mashiach. Amen, Ken Yehi Ratzon B'Meher B'Yameinu is how he finishes it. May it be Hashem's will. So, on a microcosmic level, when it comes to being able to get ready for Shavuos, if you're not ready yet, and you haven't cooked it all, and you haven't prepared it all, but more importantly, if you don't feel spiritually, I'm ready to reenact the experience in Matan Torah. Sometimes you have to come to shul and open up the siddur, or open up a book of study, and sometimes it could hit you. It could hit you all and have this epiphanous moment when you least expect it. So don't get discouraged. Don't be disappointed. Don't feel it's hopeless. Don't give up hope. But realize that Teshuas Hashem Keharif Ayin, that God's redemption can happen at the blink of an eye. And that will hopefully help us to get ready for Shavuos and also for the coming of Mashiach. It should happen. I wish you all a good Yantiv.